Welcome to a brand new edition of this interview space with Vórtice and America Films to explore the minds and stories of the artists who shaped our world through sound, vision, and soul. Today, we're beyond thrilled to be joined by someone whose rhythm helped shape the early pulse of one of the world's most iconic rock bands, and whose journey continues to inspire far beyond the stage. With us is the one and only Joe Wyman, former drummer of the legendary Scorpions, a pioneer of that first raw era of European hard rock, and now the creative force behind Joe Wyman and the Blackouts, based right here in Mexico. We're recording today from America, and we're honored to share this space, this time, and this story with a man who has lived many musical lives, each one with its own rhythm, roots, and reinvention. Joe, welcome to Vórtice. It's truly a pleasure to have you here today.
It's my honor to be here. I'm happy to be here and share whatever I can.
Thank you so much. So for starting, for those who are discovering who is Joe Wyman, would you describe yourself beyond being a drummer or musician?
Well, it's hard to not. I guess I could say I'm an artist, a musician, and musicians are also artists. So I would say I'm an artist in deep in my soul, and now since I'm retired, I can put 100% into that and do the things that I enjoy doing, and that makes me happy. And
music's that one.
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, can you recall the very first moment you thought music is for me? What were you hearing and feeling that moment?
Well, I have to go back a step further to when I actually got involved with music, and it's a fascinating story, and I get emotional when I hear about it, because I would not be here today if this little one thing, well, it's actually a big thing, happened in my life. And this is, I think, 5th or 6th grade. I don't know how they have it here.
6th, because
so like 12, 13 years old, something like that. There's a teacher who came to all the rooms and said, I'm starting a music class for a band, school band. Okay. And you get 2 days a week. We get together and we learn music, and we get to take the last hour of those 2 days off, and you get to skip your class. And I thought, well, this is a great idea, because I didn't like my last couple classes, whatever they were. And I thought,
it's a good offer.
Maybe I'll do this thing so I can get out of being in the classroom. Mm-hmm. And so the teacher said, come to this room and sign up. So I went. There was a line of people, and when I got up to the front of the line where she was taking the notes, she said, well, what do you want to play? Because it's a school band. They had, trumpets, clarinets, flutes, all the different instruments. Yeah. And I said, I don't know. And this true story. And she looks on the list. We don't have any drummers. You want to be a drummer? And I said, yeah. Sure.
Okay.
And so that's really how I got started. That one teacher changed my whole life. And about 15 years later, I was able to contact from the school, call her up on the phone, the old phones that they had back then. And I thanked her. And, she was, teachers are unsung heroes. They influence, a lot of people, and they don't get the credit. But she changed my whole life. So one person can change, the direction of your whole life. And yeah. I don't know how I would have survived without music. But my parents were able to give me private lessons, and I learned. And I got my first drum set and started listening to rock. And fortunately for me, I was born, or when I was started really listening to rock, it was in the late 60s, early 70s.
Okay, it
So
was a great era.
I got to see Led Zeppelin, Black Sabbath's first U.S. tour with Ozzy was 17 years old. I got to see Deep Purple. I mean, Deep Purple before Ian Gillan. Then I saw Deep Purple like 4 or 5 times. But I got to, you know, all the bands, The Who, just the whole spectrum of bands that in that era, which today they call classic rock. So I was fortunate to grow up in that period and actually see all those bands. Yeah, it was amazing that teacher. I could be a trumpet player or some other instrument, but it just eventually just became my passion.
Yeah, and it's so beautiful that you thanked her like years later.
I did, yeah.
It was a great change in your life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and talking about like changes that we didn't imagine, when you started playing in the band, did you really thought that you would make history, or you were just chasing the next gig, the next song?
Well, and all the musicians out there will understand this. Our main goal is not only just learning the instruments and having an amazing attitude on stage and all the things that you need to do to get there, but this playing live on stage is where the magic is for musicians. So for me, just playing the drums in the band and seeing the faces of the people and that are singing the lyrics and enjoying themselves, that's
the magic.
Yes. So when I was, there wasn't a lot of drummers when I was growing up, so it was easy for me to play in bands. So I was 14, 15 years old playing in bars that, you know, you had to be 18 or 21 or something to be in.
Yeah.
And because I was in a band, you know, and so here I'm this young kid playing in bars that I wasn't supposed to be in. So that was pretty cool to do that. But eventually I ended up in Europe and ended up auditioning for the Scorpions and playing with them. And you know, when you're 19 years old, you're not really thinking about everything. You just want to go up and play. So
Yeah, enjoy the moment.
I did shows with them, and we did just small live concerts. At that time, they weren't international. They were only popular in Germany.
Okay.
And so we did shows in Germany.
Okay, like the start off before jumping to the world.
This is way before about 10 years after I was in the band. About 10 years later is when they started becoming more international and started touring around the world.
As you said before, the little things sometimes doesn't plan it, and imagine that you didn't choose the drum.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
yeah.
you think sometimes the things happen.
Well, actually, the teacher said drummer, so okay. Drummer.
So you choose it, like there was no other option, and the little things sometimes take you to another place where you can learn about new things.
Mm-hmm.
And will you say your music path was shaped more by instinct or by discipline?
I would say a little bit of both, because if you, people always ask me, you know, how do you, and I'm not trying to brag or boast that I'm, you know, this amazing drummer, but they ask me, well, how do you get, you know, how do you play that, this or that? And I say, practice, and practice, and practice, and practice. So in order to learn a rhythm pattern, no matter how basic it is, you need to play it like 10,000 times. And it's just that repetition, and eventually it becomes, well, this is where the discipline comes in. Because if you want to be from beginning to a professional, you have to find the time to put into it. And from here to here just depends. It can be shortened if you practice like 3 hours a day. And there are some musicians that just practice for hours and hours. They just love it so much. And obviously you need to love what you're doing, otherwise you're just wasting your time. So you can you can become professional, but it can take 10 years, 5 years, or 2 years, or 1 year. It just depends on how much time. So that's the discipline part. And then, of course, if you're not passionate about it, you're not going to be disciplined to do it. So you need to have this deep burning passion, and this is what I want to be, and never give up.
Sure.
And just keep pursuing it.
Believe in you.
Yeah, you got to and believe in yourself, and that. So practice. There's this saying that practice makes perfect, but actually it's perfect practice makes perfect. So you got to make sure, no matter what instrument you're playing, that you're using the right techniques. So you need to find other professional people that have learned the special techniques, and you learn from them, and not because when I was teaching, I taught drums for many, many years, and a lot of the drummers already had some experience, but they had a lot of bad habits. So they were,
Like they don't have discipline or something?
Well, they were taught the wrong way.
Okay.
They were taught in their techniques, and it's like, well, there's an easier way of doing this, but they learn it, and then it's so hard to relearn.
Yeah.
And I know that for a fact, because, and some drummers out there might get mad at me, but I don't care, I'm going to say it anyway. So did someone bring a pair of sticks, drumsticks? There was I saw.
Oh.
Did you?
Yeah, they would bring some sticks.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
So I'll just show everyone. That's okay.
Yeah.
Oh, these are
Of course.
nice. 5B, this is what I use, 5B. Okay, so there are two ways, or there's probably other ways, but match grip and then this traditional grip, okay? So when I learned, my teacher learned the traditional grip, and this is how I learned
Okay.
for quite a few years. And then I get, I go to concerts and stuff, and I see my hero drummers, Keith Moon, Ginger Baker, and John Bonham. I got to see, them play live. And they're all holding their sticks like this, and I'm thinking, maybe I should do this too. And it took me a long time, I'd say about a year and a half, 2 years, to really get so comfortable to hold the sticks like this. So this is what I'm saying about bad habits. That some drummers hold the stick like that, and they got all this here on the bottom, and you get more leverage. Again, there'll be people that will say, no, that's wrong, but in my opinion, and so I'll just put these down. So there, discipline and passion. You really need both to really become successful. So.
Okay.
I hope I answered that correctly.
No,
Yeah.
it was so great, because you also showed us how.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, talking about the start, who were those persons that were your first accomplishment with music? The ones who first really trust yourself?
Mm-hmm. Well, in the beginning, when I was taking lessons, my teacher, he goes back another 10, 15 years. So his music experience was, in the 50s and 60s, and mine was late 60s, 70s when I first got started. So his heroes were more jazz and big band drummers. I can't remember all of them, but and he wanted all his students to like that style of music and to play that style of music. But as a teenager, you kind of rebel and say, no, I want to play rock, and he was kind of disappointed. But the drummers that really kind of molded, and you can hear it in my playing, Ginger Baker of the Cream, John Bonham, Led Zeppelin, and Keith Moon. So if I had to pick one, I would say Keith Moon, because when I was young, I just wanted to go crazy on the drums, and Keith Moon goes crazy on the drums. So did I answer the question?
Yeah,
I
perfect.
get off track
Great
sometimes.
No,
I guess we're now. So, okay.
Yeah.
Well, talking about your music and when you start with that, take us back to the now legendary moment when you met the Scorpions. What were you looking and what they were?
What was I looking? That's a great question. I was looking for a band because I traveled to Europe. I bought a Volkswagen van and bought camping equipment and just drove around all over Europe to kind of see the world. But I was running out of money, so I wanted to find a band and to play with because I was still a drummer and still had the passion to drum. And I ended up in a record store in Germany, and the owner was from England, so he spoke English, and we talked, and I said, hey, I'm looking for a band, and he helped me. There was a magazine, or like a newspaper that it had European music and things, concerts, and it was like the Rolling Stone type magazine. A music magazine or a music paper, and on the back it had advertisement for, keyboard player looking for a band or band looking for a singer, and so he helped me to write out an ad, American drummer looking for a band, and since I didn't have, they didn't have cell phones back then, so we put the number of the record shop.
And he would talk to you.
And whoever would call him or reply to that ad, I would call him like every week and on the phone, and no matter where I was, and ask him. And he said, "Oh, you know what? There was two bands that actually responded." And I said, "Well, which one would be the better one?" And he said, "I think the Scorpions would be the better band." So he gave me their number. I called them up, and I was like on my way in a whole different direction. And obviously there was a language barrier, but we were able to communicate enough, and that they gave me the address. And it took me like 3 days of driving just to get there.
Wow.
And I got there and I auditioned for them, and they said, fine, you're great, and we want you in the band. And the reason they wanted the American band, this is a interesting story. Some of you probably know this. If you, let's say if you're a Mexican band and all your lyrics are in Spanish, you can have a lot of success because there's a lot of Spanish-speaking countries, and you can become famous within those countries. But if you traveled all over the world and you want to become a universal band, your lyrics have to be in English.
Yeah.
So they were happy that there was somebody in their band that can actually write lyrics and stuff, and so they were happy they had a drummer that could play the drums,
looking forward to
fairly well, and somebody that can translate and
all the songs.
Yeah, into English. So
it was a plus
for them.
How do you feel in the moment when you go to the audition and they say, "I like you, you're gonna be in our band"? How do you feel?
Well, it's always a great feeling when people like you and they like your drumming, and they hire you or you're in the band, and the opposite is true when they don't. I've had a situation where that's happened to me, and you just got to realize that if this doesn't happen, there's something better. There's something better. So just leave that chapter behind and just move on and just keep auditioning, and eventually you find the right people to mix with and
learn.
Yeah.
And hopefully it works.
And talking about those moments where you go with the correct people in your life, remembering the first time that you played with the band, with the Scorpions, would you say it was instant chemistry, a little bit of chaos, nerves? How would you describe that moment?
Well, always, when you're in a new band and you're playing music you never heard before, It is a little bit nerve-wracking, but once you get through, one or two songs, you get more relaxed, and everything,
Smoother.
yeah. And they all liked, everyone in the band, including Michael Schenker was in the band at the time. He was 17 years old and just amazing on the guitar. And I don't know if you know Michael Schenker, the guitarist will probably know who he is. He's super famous.
Yeah.
In fact, the band UFO stole him from the Scorpions, kind of, and he joined UFO, and that was a short period in the Scorpions' history where they were kind of deciding, should we keep going or should we stop now? Because I left the band, and then Michael left the band shortly after.
Yeah, it was a brief time.
Yeah, but no, it's music is a universal language. Everybody, you can play Led Zeppelin in any country, and there's people that relate to it. So it's a universal language, no matter where you are. So you just find the right people, and you get together, and magic happens.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's pure magic.
The music is like a language that you don't have to speak it, you have to feel it, and you can understand the people.
Mhm.
And what was the dynamic like with the band at the time, and how did you release recording sessions really feel behind the scenes?
Well, we rehearsed for about 6 weeks before we actually went out and started doing shows. And since you bring the recording thing out, so if anyone's interested in listening to raw, very early, with Michael Schenker on the guitar and Klaus singing and me drumming, there is if you go to YouTube and put in, I think it's 1972 or 1973 bootleg Scorpion songs. There's a guy who snuck into one of our concerts that I was playing at, and he set up 2 mics in stereo.
Okay.
Yeah.
And he wasn't supposed to. He actually was kicked out,
Wow.
and he snuck back in and recorded 6 Scorpion songs. And the first song on that, if you find it and you start going through it, the first song was a song that I wrote the lyrics for.
Okay.
So that was kind of like my little contribution. And now that song, because I wrote it, and I left the band at some point, but that song was never published or anything like that. But they did play it that night, and if you want to hear it, you can find that recording on YouTube.
And it's a good news actually that we have that recording available.
Yes,
Although
yes,
he
yeah.
was kicked out and snooped in. Working with a young Michael and a pre-legend Klaus Main, how was it for you? How was being more than a band?
Well, a quick short story. As I was traveling through Europe, in it was my first wife. I had more than one. My first wife and myself were traveling through Europe. We, in loving music, we would find out where concerts were, and we went to a lot of concerts in Europe. And we ended up going to this concert in Germany as we're traveling through there. And there was a band it was, many bands, and we kind of sat there and watched several
Like
bands.
a festival?
Yeah, it was like a 1 or 2 day festival, and I think they still have it. It's still an ongoing thing after all these years.
Okay.
And so this band comes up, and they took a long time to set up, and they're all set up, and they were called the Scorpions. And so, and I told them this later, when I got in the band, that I saw you guys play, but when I heard Klaus's voice, I knew right away that this guy's a superstar, because his range and just you know, his voice was amazing.
Awesome.
Excuse me.
Yeah,
And so he, so I was just very impressed with Klaus, and of course the the whole band sounded good, and then then I met maybe a couple weeks later I met the guy that the record shop, and then eventually I ended up with that band that I actually saw that I knew nothing about.
It was not coincidence.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay. When you were in Scorpios, went through many changes in the early years. Do you think that constant evolution helped or hide their sound in those performance moments?
I'm not. Can you
Yeah, I can
ask
repeat
me
it.
again?
Scorpions went through many changes in the early years. Do you think that constant evolution helped or hide their sound in those formative moments?
Excellent question. Now, there is a guy from Brazil that made this poster, and I'm one of 27 members on this poster.
Wow.
So the Scorpions have gone through 27 members. The only person that was not, so I think it'd be 28, is Mickey D, because he made that poster before Mickey D became their drummer.
Okay.
But they definitely went through a lot of member changes. Like even AC/DC and have gone through a lot. I would say maybe 20, different bass players and different drummers and this and that, and three different singers so far. Yeah, but the Scorpions went through a lot of changes. What was the other part of the question?
Do you think that constant evolution helped or hide their sound in those formative moments?
Now, if you're a Scorpion fan, obviously you probably like all their music, but there's some fans that like their older music, which was more raw rock and roll, and then they spent years trying to find their place in the rock history. And there's a certain point, like in the 80s, where they really started hitting it big with unique songs that made the on the radio and MTV and stuff like that, and
getting their own style.
Yeah, but they had a lot of great music that's as good as the popular stuff they have now, but it was just unknown because the record companies kind of decide which songs go here and which will not do anything.
You can hear if you're only a fan.
Yeah, so it depends on. There's a lot of fans that love their newer stuff. There's a lot of fans that love the 70s, and as they were developing with the different guitarists that they had and different drummers. Each time you change, even if it's one member in a band, 4, 5, 6 piece, you change one member, the vibe of the music slightly changes. So, and they just finally found their place, and they became super famous, and that's the rest of the story, the history. That what little that I know. There's some people that probably know more about the Scorpions than I do.
Well, but maybe there's a record in the number of members on the band with all the changes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, and talking about these changes, do you think that when you get out of the band for other projects, it was the exact moment? Do you wish you had stayed longer, or what was your feeling about that?
Well, that's a great question, because when I left the band, when I left the band, they went through, and then when Michael left the band, they almost broke up, but then they got Yuli, who's just an amazing guitarist, and Matthias. It kind of swapped back and forth until Yuli left, and then Matthias stayed, and Michael Schenker kind of came back for a little while, but then the two brothers don't talk to each other anymore. But I'm trying to think of how to. Ask me the question again, so I
do
can.
you think that in that moment it would be better to stay longer, or it was the perfect time?
Well, there is no really perfect time. When you get in my age, you start to figure things out. And I don't know everything, but everything happens for a reason and in its place. And if you always wonder what if this happened and that happened, but everything happens because that's the way it happened. It's hard to describe, but it took 9 or 10 years after I left. Just quick story. I'm driving in my car, and I'd left the Scorpions behind. They weren't big, huge international band.
Yeah.
Had no one had any idea who they were or where they were going. And so I'm driving my car, and I hear this song on a radio, and I can't remember if it's The Zoo or Rock You Like a Hurricane, one of their very, very early big hits. And I go, oh my God, they finally made it. And Klaus has such a unique voice.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's how you can figure out when you hear a band play and you just listen to the voice, and oh yeah, that's you too. That's Ozzy, that's, this band, that band, that band. But Klaus has such a unique voice. When you hear him sing any Scorpion song, that's the Scorpions. And I go, they finally made it. And then, I was happy for them, and I actually got to go backstage and hang out with them when they did their first and their second and third world tours, or U.S. tours. And, I was happy for them. There are times where you think, oh, I should have stayed. But if I stayed, who knows what direction they would have gone. And I did have some influence on them. I kept telling them, you got to come to the United States.
Okay.
If you want to really hit it big, I think the States, you need Europe, you got the Asian, the States, and Europe, and they were just becoming semi-famous in Europe, and then they ended up in Japan and doing a double live album, and that double live album is where they kind of really shot up. And can I tell another story?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, first.
Please.
And at least the people in this room are too young to remember when MTV first came out.
Okay.
Because that's maybe, 40 years ago or something like that.
Kind of 40.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when MTV first came out, it was all music. It wasn't, reality shows and all that stuff, which it is today. And when it first came out, it had maybe, and I don't know the exact count, maybe 6, 7, 8 songs.
Yeah.
And it just kept playing over and over and over. And then bands were starting to realize that if they wanted to become, more visible, an advertiser or whatever, they need to create videos. So that's when the whole video thing started. Every band had to have a video for, all the hit songs. So the Scorpions were very lucky to get on that rotation at some point, when it became 10 songs, 11 songs, and they started adding, and the Scorpions, and it could be Rock You Like a Hurricane, but it got into that loop, and then MTV started becoming more and more popular, and people saw, hey, this band, the Scorpions, and so that really shot him up, to a
it was like the boom moment.
Huge level. Another quick story, if you're okay with that.
Yeah.
And I talked to because I'm like an honorary member of the band, and wherever they play, I get to go backstage. Well, I have to ask permission first. I ask the managers, and they give me passes. I don't just show up, hey, here I am.
To give advice.
I ask. But their first and it's a strange thing because I'll just pick a band, Aerosmith and Bon Jovi. You know, they all had their peak. You know, where the first U.S. tour,
Okay.
the Scorpions, they were the opening act for like Bon Jovi,
Okay.
Aerosmith,
Yeah, like the
Styx, you know, all these bands that were here, and they were here. So they were the opening act. The second tour, it was half and half. Now, Aerosmith, or, you know, and I could be wrong, I'm just naming bands. So some of these top bands are now down here, and now the Scorpions are here. So their first tour, they were the opening act. Second tour, half and half. And then after the third tour, they are never the opening act. Every show they do, they are
They
the
were the
act.
principal.
If they do a big festival with, you know, like 3-day festival, they're always the main act of that day.
Yeah,
You know,
main
they'll
stage.
be the band that you got to go see, the last band of the night, so they'll be the top band. And that's a great strategy. You know, they got to the point that we're never going to. To me, it's not a bad thing, but you know, they just never are the opening band anymore.
Yeah,
So all their shows,
staged or-
they are the band. If you come to that show, you're coming to see the Scorpions, and they have opening acts for them.
Okay, that's a great story because it's like
Thank you
I
for
got
sharing
plenty
that.
more.
inspiring.
I bet that when that end, because you had a lot of stories, and it's really, I think, really cute that you share that with us, and remember that with a lot of love, because they were part of you.
Yeah.
You were so young. So when that chapter ends, what do you learn about yourself, being on your own?
Well, I didn't really do much. I was always still in music. I taught music, and I always played in local bands. There were some earlier opportunities in the 80s where I got together with a couple famous people. Unfortunately, the first one died from an overdose, and he was a famous singer, and we were starting a whole new band, and he died, so that didn't work out. And then the second one, I was in a really good band. It was just a power trio, and the guitarist became very religious and became a pastor. So, you know, he kind of got out of the rock scene is crazy. So, you know, it's hard to put, you know, religion and rock, or at least that style, together. So that didn't work out. And then at some point, I just played in local bands, but I'm not sure if I'm answering the question correctly.
No,
but,
yeah.
But yeah, and now now that I've moved here to Mexico City, it's like, well, this is fun. So I can start my own band, and we do a mix of, well, it just depends on the venue. Some venues want all Scorpion songs, so we do a Scorpion tribute, about 15, 18 songs. And then some, we like to mix it up. So we do our original music, we do Scorpions, and then we do some unique covers. We try not to do, our cover songs is, there are, most of your bands all over Mexico, they all play, there's like 20 songs, and they all play the same songs over and over, because the crowd wants it, you know, they
The
keep
same
asking
songs. Yeah.
the same songs, and so we don't do any of those songs. We try to do songs that people know, but they're
Not the main.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So we mix it up with those three type, and it's fun. And you know, I've had managers and stuff, and most of them just talk a lot and they don't do anything. So at this point, I'm kind of managing it myself, but I do have some people that are helping to kind of
guide a little bit?
Find more shows. So our main objective now is we got the material down, we got the music down. We just need to do more shows, get out there and do more shows. So.
Okay, and about this change from your band, from Scorpions, then leaving Scorpions, and now your band, have you already held yourself with all your music versions, or are there chapters that still sting a little bit, or you have still to work a little bit on them?
Well, as you get older and more mature, you start to figure things out, and you've worked things out when things don't sting you anymore. So you just kind of let go of all of that, which you need to kind of do if you want to move forward. I don't know if I'm making sense.
Yeah.
But you can't go back and change nothing. The only thing you can change is right here, right now. What are you doing now? You can't change the future because it hasn't happened, and you can't go back and change the past unless you have a DeLorean with a flux or flex capacitor, whatever that is, and you can go back in time. You're pretty much stuck where you are here and now, so you leave all that behind, you move forward. I'm enjoying it because I get to remember earlier I was talking about that 8-year-old, we all have an inner child. But when I'm playing the drums, I'm a teenager, 12, 13, 14 years old, just having a great time playing the drums.
Enjoying and biting it.
Enjoying and
You want to share with everybody.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I don't know if I answered that question or I kind of went many different
it was
ways.
answered correct.
Okay.
So I want to get into your career and your new band.
Oh, okay.
Okay. How did Joe Wyman and Blackouts come to life?
Well, if I learned the hard way. I started a couple other bands that had different names. One was the Metal Miners, and then the second one was Taken by Force.
Okay.
And the problem was the bands didn't work out. 'Cause as you try to there's a fine line between just going out and playing and drinking beer and going home to where you really want to, push it to a higher level. And it was I'm not knocking the musicians or anything like that, but they were kind of like holding the whole project down. And so it took and so when one project ends, I got to start all over. I got to start a different name. So I decided Joe Wyman and the Blackouts. And the Blackouts can be anybody.
Okay, that's a great idea.
So if one member leaves to do his own thing, which has happened. I had a member that actually moved to Chicago.
Okay, yeah, it's
So
a little bit complicated.
he's gone. and another, almost every, well, let me rephrase that. Everyone in my band has other projects always going, but their number one priority is the Blackouts. So when we have a show, I tell everyone in advance, and if they had a show with someone else, they'll have a replacement for them so they can do the show with me. So now it's Joe Wyman and the Blackouts, and the reason I use Blackouts is the Blackouts is kind of like a tribute to the Scorpions. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for that short time in history that I was with the Scorpions. Which brings up another point, if I can talk about it.
Of course.
Sure.
There are there are thousands and thousands and thousands of people that have well, let me rephrase that. There's and it's true with it. No matter what you do or what you say, there's going to be one or two or three people that just don't like you, and they make up stories.
Yeah.
And so one of the last stories I did a radio show. What is today? Wednesday. Yesterday, I got so much going on. If I didn't have it in my phone or a calendar, I'd get lost.
Viaje.
And so I did a radio show yesterday, but it was advertised, and some guy wrote, he was only with the Scorpions for 14 minutes.
Okay,
It's
yeah.
like, okay, 14 minutes, and that anyone can get the Scorpions and have pictures with them. So this is for the doubters. If you think you know more about me than I do, then go to YouTube and put in Joe Wyman in the blackouts, or just my name, Joe Wyman, and scroll down. You'll find a video of Klaus. I happen to be at one of their concerts, and I'm backstage. This is in Florida. And so Klaus, in between few songs, in the very beginning of the concert, he says, the Scorpions go back a long way, back in the 70s, and we needed a drummer, and we found this drummer, and he's right from Florida, and he's here tonight, because Klaus knew I was there. And so the bass player comes around the corner and says, "Hey, Joe, Klaus is talking about you. Come on out." And so I'm like peeking out, and Rudolf Schenker, because Klaus and Rudolf are like the two main people in the band that own the whole thing now, and Matthias does too, the three of them. And Rudolf Schenker grabs my hand, pulls me on stage up to Klaus. I give Klaus a big hug, and I go like this. That was my 15 seconds of fame on the stage with the Scorpions in a big, huge auditorium. And Klaus was saying he was our drummer.
Yeah.
We were looking for a drummer, and he said Joe Wyman, and so that's absolute proof. And you can see the video of Rudolph pulling me on stage, and me giving him a hug. And on the way out, the bass player, we did high fives. I went backstage with a big smile on my face. That was the first time, Klaus told the world that there was a drummer from Florida. His name was Joe Wyman, and he was in the band. So there's proof there. I have a lot of, we did, when I first got in the band, we did photo shoots, and there are maybe 5 or 6 photos from that photo shoot you can find online. One more quick thing.
Yeah, of course.
This is really fascinating. There was a company called Brain that produced their first album, The Lonesome Crow, and it had a unique cover, and they couldn't reuse, or they had rights to keep making that album. The second release of that album, instead of the first cover, they used a different cover, and they used there's a picture right in the middle of the cover of the band, and they accidentally, or they didn't know that I was not in the band anymore, and there's a picture of me on one of the very first Scorpion albums. So that's kind of an honor, and they're really hard to find here. You can find a lot of them in Europe and several in the U.S., but I've been looking everywhere for them, and because I'm on the cover.
Special edition.
And I didn't know that until about 5-6 years ago. This guy from France who's just a crazy Scorpion fan, he wanted to interview me, and because he knew I was in the band, and then he told me, he said, there's a picture of you on one of the albums. And I go, really? Wow. So all these years I had no idea it was there. Otherwise I would have bought a bunch, to autograph.
Yeah,
and
no,
give,
you didn't notice then.
Yeah, so now I'm trying to find them so I can autograph them and give them to, good friends. And
yeah, it would
but
be
they're kind of rare,
special.
so they're hard to find. So, I wasn't with the band a super long time, less than a year, but I did influence them in like I was saying earlier. I said, you got to come to the States. So they just worked and worked and worked, and one of their goals was to
Have an American
come to the
member.
U.S. Yes, because some bands make it big in Europe, but not in U.S. Some bands make it huge in the
USA.
U.S., but Scorpions, became famous worldwide. And another thing, the van I was talking about that I was driving around in Europe, the Scorpion van broke down, so we were using my van to get around and everything. I'm driving, Klaus Main right next to me, and back then they had cassettes. I don't know if you know what cassettes are, the little tapes. And I recorded a bunch of stuff before I came to Europe, so I would have some music that I like. And I love The Who. So I said, Klaus, you got to listen to this song. Pop the tape in, and it's The Who, it's Can't Explain. And it's a live version of it, so it can, the guitars are bum, ba-dum, bum, ba-dum. If you don't know the song, you can listen to it. The live version is amazing. And Klaus is listening to it, and we're singing to it, because there's backup. And then years later, the Scorpions do, and there was another song, and I can't remember which one it was, but that one in particular, because Klaus was like sitting right next to me listening to it. And he said, every band that has a long history has done a cover song album. Where all the members in the band will pick, their 3 or 2 favorite songs, and they'll put 8 or 9 or 10 or whatever it is. And Can't Explain was one of the songs, and they actually played it live for quite a few years.
Okay, that's
till the next cover song. So I don't know if they do any covers now, but they did in the past. They always would do 1 or 2 cover songs in their show. And Can't Explain is on there because Klaus never heard heard it before, and he loved it, and he eventually years later recorded it. So I did have some influence.
Yeah, each member has some influence, and also being the first American has an importance.
Yeah. Wow. And then when Michael Schenker started touring the U.S. With UFO, I got to go backstage and hang out with him several times. And so it's, do you go back and think, oh, I should have stayed? No, because then all this stuff that has happened to me. I have two kids, that I might have never had if went that direction, or so you just have to be happy of your past, learn from it, and just be happy where you are and move forward. So I think I answered like 10 questions at once.
It was
but I got and I got more unique stories. We probably have me come back and we'll do some more stuff.
Well, you have
you have more questions?
Yeah.
Okay, go.
If you don't mind.
No. I love this.
Listen to you is really incredible. I mean,
thanks.
Hear the stories by the person, and I really get close to that. So I imagine that, and I get excited. And
good.
You have a really interesting life, and everything with the bands and the feelings in the scenario. How do you keep your creativity alive before all those years?
Well, artists will understand this, and the musicians are part of that artistic group. You just have a passion for what you're doing, and that passion drives you on a daily basis. I'm always, when we first got here, someone said, and they were showing me around. He said, "Walk this way." So what in my head, "Walk this way," by Aerosmith. I don't know if you know that song.
Yeah.
And so people are talking to me, and I hear little bits of lyrics, and I start singing it. It's just it becomes part of your life. It's like in your blood. It's in your heart. It's in your soul, and that's what drives you. And it doesn't necessarily have to be drums. It can be any instrument. It can be any art form. So no matter who you are and what you do. So if you're I don't know, whatever you do, if you're at a job that you don't like, you got to find some kind of hobby, something that you have a passion for, that's what keeps you alive. And
Okay.
you have a job and that makes you money, but you don't have the passion for it. So you got to find something that's creative, that's inside of that you can share with the world, and that could be gardening. I got into growing cactuses and succulents, and it was a lot of fun. And but you find these things that you have passion for, and if I can leave everybody with and I'm not ending it, it just comes to mind now. So the number one thing in life is to be happy.
Okay.
That's it. If
Yeah.
you're not happy, you're thinking and you're doing something wrong.
Yeah.
So if you're not happy, got to figure out, why am I not happy? Fix it and become happy. And you become happy when you're doing your passion, the singing, dancing, it's any art form that you're good at. And everybody has something that they can share with the world in that sense. So I know it's a silly song, Don't Worry, Be Happy. And also Bob Marley, every little thing's gonna be all right. Don't worry, be happy. It's silly, but really the most important thing in life is just to be happy. Can we be happy all the 100% of the day? No. Things happen, but they happen for a purpose, because there's you learn from everything. If you're happy, you're going the right direction. You're thinking the right thing. If you're unhappy, then you're not thinking. It's mostly your thinking, and it's like a switch: happy, sad, and everyone chooses.
Right.
Yeah, it's like finding that thing that gives you energy to do
Something
what
to
you
look
want.
forward to. When I the only concert that we have confirmed is June 20th. Can I yeah, so
Sure.
if it's
Yeah.
June 20th, which is like 2 months from now, it's at the Hendrix Morrison Bar. There's a Hendrix Bar and then a Hendrix Morrison. But if you want to make sure if you want to come see us play, we have, I think in May, we're going to have 2 more at the McCarthy's. We do a lot of shows at the McCarthy's. The different ones, there's 5 or 6 all
Yeah.
I think
Wow.
just in Mexico City. Joe Wyman Artist on Facebook or Instagram, and just follow, and I always post where my band is playing. I'm actually in 2 different bands, but my main band, the Blackouts, is what I concentrate mostly on. And come and say hi, and come to our show and say, hey, I heard you or I saw you on this
And
on
the
this
sound
show.
of you.
Yes,
Yeah.
and but that's it. So
Okay.
next question.
Talking about your new band, your actual band, the Blackout.
Mm-hmm.
How was it for you to come from the position that it's backwards from the drummer to the front of a band and lead it?
Mm-hmm. Well, it's a humbling experience, because I'm not typically, how would you say it? There's a term for people that are kind of passive, which is like me, kind of. Although inside I'm this shy person that doesn't like to be loud and crazy, but it has brought me out of my shell. I don't know if people understand that concept, and now I go on stage. I'm not nervous anymore, and and it's not easy to be on stage when you got all these people looking at you. It's a very scary thing for a lot of people. But when you've done it so many times, behind the drums, people ask me, "Are you nervous?" No.
Yeah,
And it's the reason I'm not nervous is because I'm confident, and I'm not boasting, or saying I'm an amazing drummer, but I'm confident in myself and my playing. I play good, just solid beats. I'm not crazy, and I'm not as fast as I used to be. But the point is, I'm confident because I practiced, and practice creates confidence. And when you're more confident, you love it more, and you practice more, and it's just better and better and better. So I can get up and play, and I'm confident that I know what I'm doing, and so I'm not nervous. Only time I'm slightly, how would you say it, slightly nervous, is when we're trying out a new song that we've never done before.
There's no practice before.
We never rehearsed before, because a lot of bands that everyone will learn the song and then they'll come and play it on stage, and so it gets kind of scary that I hope everybody does plays the right parts.
Okay.
So what else?
Well, I have another one.
Yeah.
What part of you has never changed, no matter the band, the city, or the era?
I got the first part. What was the last part?
No matter the band, the city, or the era. Era of you, your younger self, your now yourself.
Oh, well, I'm not understanding the question. So
No, in your way to become the star that you are now.
well, I'm like, people say, "Oh, you're famous," and I always say, "Well, I'm almost famous."
Why?
Almost famous. Well, I'm not, like up here. I'm just kind of. I don't feel like I'm super famous or anything like that. I'm just Joe Wyman, and I love to play, and I have this short history with the Scorpions, and I've studied music, and I know a little bit about music. I don't know everything. Nobody knows everything, so it's every day's a learning process. So, but I apologize. I just don't understand the question. I know we want to.
If you want, we can
Well, we
change it.
can move on.
Oh, yeah, I can move on.
And now that you've been some years here in Mexico,
Mm-hmm.
what is Mexico like for you? What does it represent? How have you lived this time here?
It's an amazing country, beautiful country. The people beautiful. The government, and it almost every country, and it's the same thing in the U.S. That most of the people are super nice, beautiful people, beautiful country. Almost every country in the world. It's unfortunately the governments are not so nice.
Yeah.
But no, Mexico. I think there's a misconception in the U.S. When you listen to Mexican news, the mainstream news, they'll say bad things about the U.S. And when you listen to mainstream U.S., they say bad things about Mexico. And the reason is they're trying to divide and conquer and make this group hate this group to create more problems. But I don't want to get into politics.
I know.
But no, Mexico is absolutely amazing. The geography and the mountains and the valleys and Mexico, and I've been learning as much as I can about Mexico City. It's just a fascinating city, and how it was started when they said we're going to make a city here when we see an eagle holding a snake. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's correct.
And it just happened to be in the swampy area, probably one of the worst places to actually put a city. But they decided, okay, this is where we're going to put the city. So little things like that, the history of Mexico, I'm learning. And obviously it's a big, when you go to, when you're in the U.S., if you're around Texas and Arizona and in California, you're going to get pretty much authentic Mexican food from a small restaurant. But once you get up into the upper parts of Mexico, like I lived in Florida, And
Yeah.
the Mexican food there and the Mexican food here are just two different types. You know, they're just they take Mexican food and they make it more adaptable to the American
Yeah.
diet or style of eating. And so I'm a lot of amazing food here, and you know I see and there's nothing wrong with that if you want to go to and you know like Chili's or McDonald's or
Yeah.
Burger King, and, you know, and that's all good and well, but people ask me, oh, you want to go there? It's just like it's a chain from the U.S. or it's you know it's a chain. It's like
Um,
why would I want to go there when I can get real authentic Mexican food?
Talking
Yes.
about food, sorry to
No, no,
interrupt
no
you.
problem.
What's your favorite food from Mexico?
You know, people ask me, what's your favorite album? What's your favorite band? And what's your favorite music? What's your favorite food? And how can you pick one food? You know, so I'm going to pick a few. Enchiladas,
Yeah.
and there's rojo and verde.
Yeah.
So, and I try to remember, last time did I have this or that? Um, pastes.
Pastas.
Pachuca.
Pachuca.
Am I pronouncing it?
Yeah, pastas is
Pastas.
correct.
In Pachuca, there's just so many,
Everywhere.
and there are, and I don't want to get in trouble, but there, you know, that there are better quality
Yeah.
ones, especially in Pachuca, because as you drive through Pachuca from Mexico City, and then you go up into the mountains, there's just so many, and some of them are excellent.
Pretty good ones.
Yeah, they're you know more handmade and you know artisanal, I guess you could say.
Have you tried esquites or elote?
I probably have, but I can't relate the name to the food because it, you know.
Corn, like
Corn
big
and in with mayonnaise.
Oh yeah, the street corn.
Yeah.
Yeah,
street
yeah.
corn.
It's absolutely amazing, except for when I first got here, I'm not used to the spicy.
Yeah, that's
The first time I got the
Really
it's,
like
after
spicy.
the second bite, my mouth was on fire. But no, and I can actually I can make it myself, you know, and which is fun. But yeah, I've tried a lot of different foods. So the pastes, tamales. I love tamales.
yeah.
And it's strange because you know you can have two tamale vendors
Yeah.
and
one
their
from
tamales are
Denver.
going to be different than their tamales, and these are going to be super spicy, or the rojo ones are going to be super spicy, but theirs red
Not
ones are
spicy.
not, and you know, so
Yeah.
it's and from city to city there's different styles, and from state to state,
Yeah, we
and
have a little bit of variety.
yes, there's
Yeah,
the
we
ones that are
speak.
kind of flat in the banana leaves, I think.
Yeah, Veracruz, they're like
They're kind of square and they're
Yeah.
flat, and those they call them tamales. But I would say if I'd, you know, pick three, I don't know how many I pick, but yeah, I can't. It's hard to say. How do you pick one, you know, type of food when there's just so
Yeah.
much out there?
Well, like going for the last questions.
Okay.
How have been your experience with your band here in Mexico City now? Like from the creative point.
Creative point.
Yeah.
All right, I'm just having an amazing time. Right now, we're kind of like in between. January, we had 4 shows. February, we don't do a lot of shows. We're not a band of playing 3 or 4 shows a week. We play maybe 2 a month. But March, no shows. April, no shows. But I think in May we'll have a couple, and we have one confirmed in June. 20th. So I love doing it. Again, I'm like a young teenager on the drums when I start playing. I mean, I'm a young kid inside anyway, but when I play drums, I'm like super happy. Um, and no, I'm enjoying my last little bit of life. I'm like at the close to the end, so I have to make every day count.
Yeah, enjoy every second.
Yeah, and the band just is like icing on the cake. It's like, wow, I have my own band, I have my own original music. It's, I've always thought of that, but now and I've always been in other bands, but now I have my own band with my own name, Joe Wyman and Black Album, and I have my own original music, and it's so much fun to play the original music. And
for your emotions, your thoughts, and
well, it's
with the public.
Yes, and it's not only that. When you're playing a cover song, like if we're playing a Scorpion song to the public, it has to be pretty much very close to the original.
Okay.
And when you do your own music, you can kind of experiment with it because nobody knows if you're making a mistake or not.
Yeah,
Nobody
only
knows
you
if
hear
you're
music.
if you're doing a second verse. Of course, nobody knows because it's your own music. So it's very more creative each time I play my songs on the drums. I do something slightly different. So every time I'm playing it, I'm trying to refine it and make it sound better. Will this rhythm work for that, or should I stop here and restart, or should I go double time here and slow it down here? Not slow it down, but half time, double time. So it's a lot of fun to create your own music.
Yeah, and you can make it your own one and another time.
Yes.
Okay.
Can I say something else?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you can.
I can talk for hours. This is fun. Everyone that's listening to this, if you've gone all the way to the end to where you're hearing me now, go out and support your local bar that has live music. Support, your friends that are in bands and they're playing live. It's so important to keep that real live classic rock and all styles of music, but people playing with a passion and playing their instruments. We want to keep that going. So support live music in any way you can. Each time you go to a bar and there's a band playing, you're supporting the bar and the band. Each time you have a friend that is in a band and they're playing somewhere and they, you'd say, should I go or should I stay here, home, or go support them, help them out. You help the band out, you help the bar. The bar stays open. They keep hiring bands and
keep live music on.
Yeah, keep that going, live music.
Okay, and you have already talked about your inner child to the audience a lot.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say right now to that inner child that was just trying to skip a class and that really found your passion?
I don't know what I would say. I mean, and because that had to happen that way, so it would take, so if that one thing didn't happen, I wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I don't know what I would have done in music, the passion for music, because I was in concert band, orchestra, I played in, 80-piece, with the violins, and, we played Bach and Beethoven and all that. So I got I did the percussion, snare or the bass or the cymbals. And so I got a really good rounded education on music. Okay. And all styles. Well, there's some styles of music that I don't really care for, but any style of music where a musician is actually holding and playing or singing live, or a real instrument, is what I love. So.
Okay.
Any other questions or?
No, well, it will be the last one.
Okay.
But Yo, thank you for taking us on this journey.
It's my honor. I to be my age and still be able to rock.
Yeah, it was great to
I
have you
appreciate it.
taking us from the early electric days to the Scorpion Path,
Mhm.
and now your new band. So you're curving now with the Blackouts.
Yeah.
You've given us more than memories. You've shared perspective, courage, rhythm, histories that doesn't age but evolves. And it's been a true privilege to listen, to learn, and to feel through the music with you. So everyone turning this was Joe Wyman with us today in this space for Vórtice and America Films. We hope this conversation moves you as much as the music has moved us all. Until next time, so keep listening, keep creating, and never stop chasing your own beat. Thank you, Joe. Thank you,
Thank you.
everybody.
Thank you so much.
It's an honor for me. Thank you. Hey, everybody out there. Greetings from me, Joe Wyman, former drummer of the Scorpions, and Vórtice in America Films. Thank you for having me here. Always remember, keep rocking.